Ora chiamo the second speaker of today, Andreas Burmester. He was a chemistry, art historian, mathematics, and he was a former director of the Doerner Institut. His paper is titled Museum, Laboratories, Art Academies, and University Research. Munich is a case study.
I have been asked whether I give my paper in German. No fear, neither German nor Bavarian, but in bad or European English, so a bit painful for the British people here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take you within the next 30 minutes into Munich, a capital of art, later the capital of German art and the capital of the movement, how Munich has been called during Nazi Germany. Just these few words indicate that my presentation will be located somewhere in the transition from a democratic Germany, the Weimar Republic, into a centralized dictatorship. My case study exemplarily demonstrates at the same time the interdisciplinary network between museums, art academies, and universities before and after Rome 1930 in Germany. In 2018, I received the kind invitation to speak in Utrecht about my two-volume study on Max Doerner, published in 2016. My later published Utrecht talk focused on the rise of technical art history in Munich and the founding history of the so-called Doerner Institut and its activities during the Nazi regime. For this presentation today, and I'm very grateful for the invitation to speak here, I would like to go deeper how upcoming concepts for this institute have been influenced by Rome 1930. Again, I shall pick out my three main players, you know them in the meantime. It includes the art historian and curator Walter Graeff. He and the chemist Alexander Eibner joined the Rome 1930 meeting. Absent in Rome, but not unimportant, was the painter Max Doerner, who taught at the Munich Art Academy. When I took over Graeff's estate in 1996, I have learned about his groundbreaking, yet completely forgotten engagement for technical art history and the application of science in art. In fact, it was, I have to be honest, the first time that I heard the name Walter Graeff. We had to rediscover him. Graeff studied law and later art history. However, I think his main talent laid in photography. He was not only a splendid photographer, and most of the photographs, might be even all, are taken by himself, which I show here, but he established the photographic department of the Pinakothek Museums, where he worked from 1910 onwards as a curator. Graeff was not only interested in the upcoming color photography, here an early autochrome, so-called autochrome from Graeff's estate, he also researched the possibilities of technical photography and examination. You heard about this. From 1912 onwards, Graeff introduced stereo loops, monocular, binocular, and stereo microscopes for the condition control of paintings. He used from the early 1920s UV lamps for reflectance and fluorescence photography. Stereo microphotography and high magnification microscopes were then introduced. As a pioneer, he began in 1916 to X-ray paintings in cooperation with members of Wilhelm Röntgen's team. You might know that Röntgen had a professorship at that time in Munich. In 1925, Graef was the first to acquire an X-ray equipment for a German museum located at the Alte Pinakothek. A wonderful photograph taken by Graef. In 1932, Graef replaced this equipment against the Siemens equipment, which you see here on the slide. With the young chemist Heinz Hedrich, Graef entered in about 1928 the area of pigment and paint media analysis. So, to summarize, at the time of Rome 1930, Munich had a kind of laboratory for the technical examination of paintings and other works of art. Graefs Untersuchungs- und Forschungsanstalt für Gemälde und andere Werke der Kunst. It's an interesting parallel to the title of the IRC in London, und andere Werke der Kunst, was a milestone for our discipline. In his eyes, connoisseurship should be based on objective and incontrovertible facts. This is what he presented in Rome 1930. He stated that the technical photography made Gemäldekunde, so painting technology, Gemäldekunde is a better word, a Wissenschaft, a topic we talked about in Utrecht. Moreover, Graef aimed to include this new, rather scientific view to paintings into the education of young art historians. He therefore started teaching Gemäldekunde at Munich University. One may see his honorary professorship, that's the other side, which he received in April 1933, in the light of his, I would like to show him again, in the light of his apparently early membership in the Nazi Party. He seemed to have been among the first 1,000 members, and as his widow testified, has been in close contact with Hitler when the latter lived in Munich. In this way, Hitler, the would-be artist, might have heard about Graef's ideas about a future institute for technical art history. I can't prove it, but it's like a puzzle, a difficult puzzle, but I think it is, as I said. There's another point. The material I found in his estate indicated that Graef had a high reputation within the art market, but a low within his museum. It's a pity that we don't speak on the art market more on that meeting, because I think it's a very important field we should not forget. But his reputation, it was very good in the art market, but not in the museum. The correspondence between Graef and the Pinakothek's general director prove a short-sighted attitude of the art historians around Graef, as Marco pointed several times out as not being untypical for the time. They neither valued nor understood his interdisciplinary science-based approach. After Graef's unexpected death in 1934, this low acceptance led to the closure of Graef's Untersuchungsstelle. My second protagonist, Alexander Eibner, was a son of an artist. Eibner was one of these hybrid people we talked about this morning. He studied history, art history, aesthetics, and modern languages at Munich University, and subsequently chemistry at the Technical University. He also joined restoration courses at the Munich Fine Art Academy. He was, as I think, a man of Bildung. From 1908, Eibner led the so-called Versuchsanstalt, a unit for testing paint materials at the Technical University. You heard about this. The Versuchsanstalt and its precursors have been studied by von der Goltz and Kienseer in great detail, and I don't have to go into this. However, and this is remarkable, a biography of the chemist Alexander Eibner has still to be written. I'm therefore not in a position to speak about Eibner's Wissenschaft, his impressive academic oeuvre and his writings. Anyway, starting his teaching in 1904, his central topic was always the chemistry of painting techniques. Due to his close relationship with Greve, however, from 1926 onwards, and his national international contacts, his interest in technical art history and in the application of scientific examination techniques grew over the years. He has been in contact with Laurie and was a corresponding member of the Royal Academy in London. In 1930, he therefore attended the Rome Conference. I suppose it was Greve who proposed to invite him. As Greve, Eibner contributed with a talk. Both have been later published in Museo, and you see here the first page of his contribution. Eibner saw his work as a Wissenschaft. Several times he mentions Wissenschaft der Maltechnik, the science of painting technique. To me, it is really obvious that Rome 1930 encouraged both Greve and Eibner to fill the gap between Eibner's Wissenschaft der Maltechnik and Greve's Gemäldekunde. As the documents show, they even discussed plans for a future common institute, taking care about all these topics. However, typical for Munich, no consensus could be reached about the whereabouts. Should the home for this new institute be Eibner's Versuchsanstalt, or Greve's Untersuchungsstelle, or even a new building to be built close to the Alte Pinakothek? Again, this was not untypical for the time being. Their advanced plans on the border of their disciplines did not get any support from the Technical University as well as from the Alte Pinakothek. Most notably, Greve's sudden death destroyed all hopes to continue the institutional cooperation. And 1 year later, in 1935, Eibner died, and the Technical University abandoned large parts of the Versuchsanstalt. So, is this the end of my case study? Did Rome 1930 lose its impetus for the developments in Munich? Bringing all dreams and ideas together was left to Max Doerner, here as a young man on this aquarelle, the absent participant. Everybody, I think, knows his book. I didn't say everybody read his book, but everybody knows his book. A best-selling book. You can still buy it today, translated in many languages, also in Spanish. Every artist of his and the following generations had this book somewhere in the studio, or even attended during his lifetime his always overcrowded lessons on painting techniques and restoration at the Munich Academy. Only few know him as an artist. His late impressionistic landscape paintings remained a hobby. but it's an important part of his life. I do not know whether Doerner was a man of Bildung, but he certainly did not belong to the Wissenschaft community. However, Max Doerner's way to look, to write, and to teach about practical aspects of painting techniques, I will call it his doctrine, was much valued. Latest, since the publication of his book in 1921, this doctrine gave him a central role among German artists. While Graefe and Eibner were soon forgotten, his role lasted far beyond his death, and I would say until today. In our nowadays view, Munich and the years around 1911 stand for the race of modernity, stand for der Blaue Reiter, Kandinsky, Münter, Jawlensky, and Mark. Doerner's perspective completely disregarded modernity. In Doerner's view, modern art was art without skills. One may assume a direct influence. Kunst ohne Können, art without skills, became a core argument from 1933 onwards, which culminated in the degenerated art exhibition opened in 1937, where in the first room, art without skills was the topic. In the view of the organizers, many, if not all works presented there were executed without skills. In Doerner's doctrine, skills could be learned from studying and copying old masters and 19th century paintings. We heard about this in Michel's lesson yesterday. His key idea then was to transform the techniques of the old masters to modern painting. Verfahren der alten Meister auf moderne Malerei übertragen. In the eyes of many German artists, Doerner therefore guaranteed this successful transformation. In the 1930s, however, Doerner was close to retirement. He's born in 1870. To save his skills for coming generations of artists, the foundation of an institute was considered to be necessary in the late Weimar Republic. Due to the lack of support from the art academy, however, all plans failed. Only the final takeover of the National Socialist Party in January 1933 allowed Doerner and his circle to succeed. Now, plans to institutionalize Doerner's doctrine became manifest. I think one of his former students, the painter and early Nazi Adolf Ziegler, reported the Munich situation directly to Hitler. In 1934, Doerner received Ziegler's order. We have to repeat this. So the teacher received the student's order to outline a plan for an institute. Now Doerner was presented with a unique chance to lay the foundations of his institute and to give his doctrine a 1,000-year perspective. This is the point where Rome 1930 comes again into play. Under time pressure and in bad health condition, Doerner used two memoranda of Graefe and Eibner. These memoranda were in the early 1930s submitted to the Bavarian Ministry of Education and in the one or other way leaked to Doerner. Both were written under the echo of 1930, and you can download these concepts from my website where I provide these. Based on these memoranda and his own ideas, Doerner then sketched a German Institute for Painting Technique, how he called it. However, he did this in I would say in his way. While Graefe introduced all the scientific methods for authenticity and condition report of old master paintings, Doerner proposed to use Graeff's methods to improve the painting technique of contemporary art. Eibner proposed in his memorandum to use analytical method to research, for instance, the nature of natural and synthetic pigments, as well as painting media of the past and of the present. For Doerner, chemistry, and first of all, remarkably, first of all, physics, should serve as auxiliary disciplines, Hilfswissenschaften, to support the living artist. Graeff's intention to objectify the art historian's expertise and Eibner's interest to make Maltechnik a real Wissenschaft were simply absorbed into Doerner's concept of the transformation of the knowledge of the past into the future. This is close to what Hitler claimed in his famous 1st of September speech, 1933, in Nürnberg. He said, "Aus Vergangenheit und Gegenwärtigen baut sich die Zukunft auf." It sounds really trivial, but Doerner quotes this several times in his manuscripts. Doerner's plans were finally accepted, and 100,000 Reichsmark, a huge amount of money at that time, was given from Berlin. Suddenly, Doerner, locally rooted and with rather tight horizon, overcame the borders of his home city. Now, a future Reichsinstitut should guarantee his doctrine. The title of a Reichsinstitut underlines the idea of a centralization, as in other fascist regimes like Italy. Marco said this several times. The political takeover by the Nazis in January 1933, Doerner's concept of 1934, the acquisition of a former private hospital under dubious condition in 1936, extensive building and renovation work, and the final opening in 1938 seemed now to materialize the dreams of many, many artists. So Doerner got a lot of support at that time from many artists. There are unfortunately not many photos from the inside of the institute. The successful foundation of this institute, however, must again be seen, as I think, in a political context. Doerner's concept of 1934 is written in this new Nazi speech. Doerner himself devoted to Hitler. Doerner's new, now national role perfectly matched on the other side the self-given image of Nazi culture, of the Nazi cultural politics. Graeff and Eibner, Munich and Bavaria did not play any role anymore. Berlin took over. The opening ceremonies of this new institute were pure politics, embedded into the program of the Tag der Deutschen Kunst in July 1938. The institute became part of a wider picture. I show you on the right side the map of the parade, and they changed the route of the parade to pass the institute. This is where the Red Cross is, so close to the Art Academy. It was not Doerner, but Ziegler who gave the opening speech for the now called Reichsinstitut for Painting Technique, in brackets Doerner Institut. Remarkably, the addition Doerner Institut, part of the official name, was missing on the invitation card. At that point, latest, everybody understood that Doerner acted as a mere puppet of the Nazi regime. Seriously sick and filled with bitterness, Doerner died some months later in early 1939. The last of our three protagonists left now the arena. However, the future and the very successful work of the Institute and this iconic last photograph is a fake because he didn't die at home, he died in a hospital, kept Max Doerner and his life's work alive in the memory of many artists, students, and amateurs until today. I conclude, did Rome 1930 influence the foundation of the Munich-based Doerner Institut? Yes, it did. Graeff's Gemäldekunde as well as Eibner's Wissenschaft der Maltechnik became a new home. This home exists until today. Doerner's concept, however, failed. It was not the art of the living artist which drew most benefit from this institute. It was and is until today rather the art of dead artists which come to the fore. But this is another story and a great part of my life in this institute from 1983 to 2017. So thank you very much.